This morning, Sweden's parliament is debating a potential bid to join NATO after the country's ruling Social Democratic Party signaled on Sunday its willingness to join the alliance. Earlier Sunday, neighboring Finland formally announced it would apply to join the group. The decision by two historically neutral countries marks a huge shift in defense policy, could have an impact on Russia's war with Ukraine. NATO members welcomed the potential move by Finland and Sweden at a foreign ministers meeting yesterday, except for Turkey, which expressed some reservations. NATO Secretary General called it a historic moment for making a damning assessment of what's happening in Ukraine.
Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kyiv. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. Their major offensive in Donbas has stalled. Russia is not achieving its strategic objectives.
NBC News correspondent Erin McLaughlin joins us now from Kyiv. So, Erin, before we get to the latest on the ground there, I do have to ask you about Finland and Sweden, their bids to join NATO. What's the reaction been like to these potential applications, and why is Turkey potentially opposed to it?
Yeah, well, the overall majority of NATO member states, Joe, see this as a welcome development. Keep in mind, if Finland alone joins the alliance, it'll effectively double the alliance's border with Russia. They both have large militaries. It's seen as potentially hugely strengthening to the alliance, and that's perhaps why the NATO Secretary General at the weekend announced that he would like to see their applications fast-tracked. Take a listen to what he had to say.
So my intention is still to have a quick and swift process where we will then sit down with Finland and Sweden if they apply, agree the accession protocol, and then hope and work for a very speedy ratification process in the 30 parliaments. That will take some time. There's no way to prevent that.
Now, if their applications are in fact submitted, it would require unanimous approval from all NATO member states, and that includes Turkey. On Friday, the Turkish president expressing his skepticism at Sweden in particular joining the alliance. He was citing his reservations about their perceived, in his words, support for pro-Kurdish militant parties. That being said, the NATO Secretary General at the weekend said that they are talking through those concerns with Turkey. He sees them as something that they could work through and does not expect that to hinder the application process in any way.
Erin, I also want to ask you about the ongoing battle in eastern Ukraine. This morning, the governor of Kyiv said that Ukrainian troops who are counterattacking in that region have reached the border with Russia. Help us understand what's going on there.
Yeah, well, for weeks, Kyiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine, has been under intense Russian bombardment, Russian forces moving in the early days of the invasion in an attempt to encircle Kyiv, seen as a critical city, also kind of potential connector to their offensive in the Donbas region as well. But Ukraine in recent weeks launching what appears to be a successful counter-offensive, not only stopping Russian forces from encircling that city, but also, according to Ukrainian military, pushing them back to the border. And military analysts have already declared Ukraine to be the winner of the battle for Kyiv, which is perhaps why the NATO Secretary General over the weekend pointing to the fact that Russian troops are withdrawing from that area, coupled with the fact that Russian forces lost the battle for Kyiv, apparent inability of Russia to take key strategic cities, which is why NATO, in NATO's assessment, they believe that Ukraine could absolutely win this war, which is why they're really throwing their support behind sending in those heavy weapons that Ukraine says is absolutely essential to win this fight. Joe.
Quickly, Erin, I want to ask about that steel plant in Mariupol. What's the latest on the wounded soldiers who are trapped inside there?
Yeah, well, that steel plant continues to be bombarded by Russian forces, by air and by land. There are serious negotiations, tense negotiations, tough negotiations, in the words of Ukrainian officials, ongoing to try and evacuate wounded Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian officials say there are about 38 wounded soldiers, but those negotiations so far have not yielded the kind of evacuations that we saw just days ago when they managed to evacuate 500 civilians from that steel plant. But those negotiations are ongoing. Meanwhile, there is a humanitarian catastrophe unfolding outside of the steel plant in the rest of the city, Mariupol. Just yesterday, the deputy mayor saying they're having serious problems with the city's water supply. The mayor saying the entire city, which it includes thousands of civilians currently trapped, needs to be completely evacuated. Joe.
All right, Erin in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.